Hello everybody, we are Ignacio Elias, Adriana Echandi, Sofia Esculies, Paula Fernandez and Juan Ferrus. We are students of third degree of Management and Law at the University of Navarra, and our SDG is Zero Hunger.
These are all the topics we are going to talk about in our presentation.
The SDG 2, or Goal 2, is about partnerships for the goals and is one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals established by United Nations in 2015, after the conference that took place in 2012 in Rio de Janeiro. SDG 2 is End Hunger, Achieve Food Security, and Improve Nutrition, and Promote Sustainable Agriculture. The goal has targets to be achieved by 2030, just as we can see in this diapositive. Now we will focus on each one of those targets and we will divide them by the future time that the goal must be achieved in. Firstly, the goals that must be achieved always are the following. First, we need to increase investment in new ways for ending hunger and in new agricultural things that we could develop in order to increase its production. Furthermore, we want to correct the trade and prevent trade restrictions in agricultural markets that sadly they exist in existing markets, especially in developing countries. And furthermore, the United Conference adopted measures and wants to adopt always measures to ensure the functioning of food commodity markets and its availability to everyone. The first objectives were set for the year 2020, and the main goal was to attain the diversity of seeds, plants, and domesticated animals. Furthermore, another goal was to promote access to fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the utilizations of genetic resources. Furthermore, the United Nations were more ambitious, and they created a goal to solve a problem that is deeply worrying. That was that many people under 5 years of age suffer stunting and wasting. Wasting, for those of you who might not be familiar with the term, as many of us were not, is a result of a weight falling significantly below the weight expected of a child of the same length or height. Wasting in children is a symptom of acute undernutrition, usually as a consequence of insufficient food intake or a high incidence of infectious diseases, especially diarrhea. So, the United Nations Conference wanted to solve that problem and internationally agreed to set targets to, by the year 2025, end this worrying situation. Finally, the goals that wants to be achieved by the year 2030 established by the United Nations Conference are the following. Firstly, to end hunger and to end all forms of malnutrition. Furthermore, it wants to double the agricultural productivity of small-scale fruit producers to ensure the sustainable fruit production, not for the year 2030, but forever.
In order to keep track of the progress made into accomplishing the goals set by the SDGs Zero Hunger, such as ending hunger, achieving food security, and improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture, the UN used multiple tools or mechanisms as indicators of the progress done over the years. Some of these mechanisms are prevalence of the undernourishment, prevalence of food insecurity, prevalence of childhood stunting, prevalence of childhood malnutrition, production per level unit, income of small-scale food producers, sustainable food production, generic resources in conservation facilities, and local breeds at risk of extinctions, among others. Now I'll continue to explain what they are and how they are measured. For starters, the prevalence of undernourishment equals to the share of the population with a caloric intake which is insufficient to meet the minimum requirements for a healthy life. This minimum may vary according to what you take into account as a standard, by individual based on age, gender, weight, activity levels, and so vary by a country depending on the demographics of its population. The goal here is to end hunger by 2030, and this means eliminating undernourishment for all. The next one would be prevalence of food insecurity, which is the prevalence of moderate or severe food insecurity in the population based on the food insecurity experiences of scales. The goal here is to achieve food security by 2032, and this means ending moderate and severe food insecurity for all. The next one I'll mention is production per labor unit, which is the volume of production per labor unit by classes of farming, pastoral, forestry, and enterprises sizes. This is reported as the economic value added per agriculture worker. And the goal here is by 2030 double the average productivity of food producers, and this would require a doubling in agriculture value added per worker. Following this one would be sustainable food production, which is of agriculture area under productive and sustainable agriculture. The goal here is to ensure sustainable food production systems and implement resilient agricultural practices that increase productivity and production, that help maintain ecosystems, that strengthen capacity for adaptation to climate change, extreme weather, drought, flooding, and other disasters, and that are progressively improve land and soil quality. The last one I'll mention would be generic resources in conservation facilities, which is the number of plant and animal generic resources for food and agriculture secured in either medium or long-term conservation facilities. This is measured here as the number of accessions of a plant and animal breeds which are stored in secure medium or long-term facilities. The goal here is to maintain the generic diversity of seeds, cultivated plants, and farmed and domesticated animals, and their related wild species, including through soundly managed and diversified seed and plant banks at the national, regional, and international levels. So as you can see, these mechanisms help us see how we can contribute and the progress made over time. Reaching the goals of each one of them help us get one step closer to the main goal, zero hunger.
To track progress, several indicators can be taken into account. We have focused on the indicator prevalence of undernourishment, which is the main hunger indicator used by the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization. It measures the share of the population which has a caloric dietary energy intake which is insufficient to meet the minimum energy requirements for a healthy life. These requirements vary by individual based on age, gender, weight, activity levels, and so vary by country depending on the demographics of its population. However, this measure does not give an indication of the average severity of undernourished. It tells us how many lie below the minimum energy requirements, but not how far they lie below this line. To provide an estimate of the intensity of undernourishment in a population, the Food and Agriculture Organization used a metric called the depth of food deficit. This measure provides an estimate of the number of calories the average individual would need in order to balance their caloric intake with energy requirements. This is calculated by measuring the difference between the average energy requirement and average caloric consumption of the undernourished population, multiplying this food deficit by the number of undernourished individuals, and then dividing by the total population. The average intensity of the food deficit is measured in kilocalories per person per day. In 2016, the majority of developing countries had a food deficit below 200 kilocalories per person per day. A small selection of countries had a deficit ranging from 300 to 500, most in sub-Saharan Africa. The country with the highest deficit was Haiti, at 530 kilocalories per person per day. This graph shows the prevalence of undernourishment by world region. Here we see that overall and across most regions, the prevalence of hunger has fallen since the millennium. Globally, this has fallen from 14.8% in 2000 to 10.8% in 2018. This increase in hunger levels are largely a result of increases in sub-Saharan Africa and small increases in the Middle East and North Africa. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization have linked this increase in undernourishment in particular to the rising extent of conflict-affected countries and compounded by climate-related factors, such as El Niño phenomenon. The chart shows the total number of individuals across the world who are defined as undernourished. Globally, we see a falling trend over the last few decades. The total number of undernourished has been steadily falling. However, over the last few years, the total number increased by around 40 million, reaching 821 million in 2017.
Well, in order to end hunger in 2030, especially in children, we have some initiatives going on right now. One of those initiatives is sustainable agriculture. Sustainable agriculture consists in farming in sustainable ways, meeting society's present food and textile needs. It's very good, this sustainable agriculture, because without compromising the ability for current or future generations to meet their needs, we can have the resources we need. It can be based on an understanding of ecosystem services. Another initiative, very important, is supporting small-scale farmers. This type of farming is usually characterized by intensive labor and, in most cases, animal tractions, limited use of agrochemicals, and supply to the local or surrounding markets. But also, it's very important that everybody has same opportunities and equal access to land, technology, and markets. To land, because in order to have a good sustainable agriculture, we need land, of course. But also we need technology in order to exploit that land and markets, because without people selling and buying different products, it's impossible to end up with hunger. It's crucial to ensure that everybody has the same opportunities regarding land, technology, and markets. But also we need international cooperation to ensure investment in infrastructure and technology to improve agricultural productivity. Well, this is why Zero Hunger started, right? Because in 2015 this project started to end up hunger. And international cooperation, as we can see, it is very important in order to accelerate the process and finishing up with hunger.
As we have already said, one of the greatest problems in the world today is hunger. While many of us enjoy the pleasures of cooking satisfying meals at home as well as dining out, there are millions of people, many of them children, in around the world that do not get enough to eat. The good thing is that this problem is fixable and there are many things an individual can do. Firstly, it would be very useful to find a go-to charity you want to support. Any donation, big or small, can make a difference. By getting involved locally and donating or volunteering at your city's food bank, as well as giving to larger charities, you can make a difference. There are many organizations that are safe choices when looking to make charitable donations to fight hunger. For instance, Action Against Hunger, the Food Bank, UNICEF, etc. Secondly, we should buy local and in-season food as well as try to grow some of our own food. If managed properly, an allotment can produce enough food to supplement a family's weekly shop with fresh fruit and vegetables over the year. Allotment gardeners can choose to garden organically and avoid ingesting chemicals that are likely to be present on shop-bought fruit and vegetables. Thirdly, a really important and easy way to support this goal is by not wasting food. A really useful way of achieving it is by freezing fresh fruit and leftovers if you don't have the chance to eat them before they go bad. Besides, everybody should buy funny fruit. This is the name for many fruits and vegetables that are thrown out because their size, shape, or color are not right. Buying this perfectly good funny fruit utilizes food that might otherwise go to waste. Furthermore, we should consume less meat and, if possible, become vegetarian for 1 day a week, because the meat production industry has a huge negative impact on the environment and as a consequence, less food can be produced in healthy ways. In addition, everybody should stay informed by following the local news and staying in touch with the global goals online or on social media. Finally, we have to spread the word. Social networks can be very useful in achieving this goal, since nowadays everybody uses them and they can reach people worldwide in a matter of seconds. Especially in light of the pandemic's effects on the food and agriculture sector, prompt action is needed to ensure that food supply chains are kept alive. As a consequence, if everybody contributes by doing their bit and get concerned about the Sustainable Development Goals, we could put our strengths together and not only eradicate hunger worldwide, but also we could make the world a better place.